I'm Dutch, and let's react to the Americans. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Johan, and I'm a typical Dutchman. And if you're planning to come over to Europe for your holidays, or maybe to live here, or if you're wondering, why is everything so expensive in the United States in comparison with Europe, then you are at the right channel. Because in the channel I take a look at and react to videos about life and living in America versus life and living in Europe and the cost of. And for today we're going to take a look at this video of USA versus Europe, so perfect channel. So let's start with a subscribe and a like. How American police compare to the police in Europe. And I've heard, of course, a lot of stories about American police and how they handle and react versus how we do over here in Europe. But are they all true? Because I wonder if the site that has been posted from the police in Europe, if that is actually correct. Because if you're showing only the worst of America versus the best of the best in Europe, then it's not a fair comparison. So let's take a look at this video about American versus European police.
Videos, the heated debates. American police, a force of good or a force of fear? As we delve deeper into the world of law enforcement, we'll uncover surprising differences between the US and Europe that might just change your perspective. Militarization, a unique American phenomenon. One of the most striking differences between American and European police forces is the level of militarization. In the US, many police departments, even in smaller towns, have access to military-grade equipment like armored vehicles, assault rifles, and drones.
Okay, SWAT teams.
Largely due to federal grants and a post-9/11 security mindset. This militarization has sparked concerns about excessive force and damaged relations between police and communities, particularly in marginalized areas. In contrast, European police forces generally adopt a more restrained approach. While some countries like France or Spain have specialized counterterrorism units, most
Yeah, especially Spain have some very hard people.
European officers are equipped with less aggressive tools and focus on de-escalation, community policing, and non-lethal tactics. Training duration, a marathon versus a sprint. One of the most striking differences between US and European police forces is the length and depth of police training. In the United States, becoming a police officer often involves anywhere between 18 to 30 weeks of training at
18 to 30 weeks.
a police academy. This training is largely focused on physical fitness, firearms proficiency, and basic law enforcement tactics. While it's intense, it pales in comparison to the training that officers in many European countries undergo. In Europe, police officers typically train for much longer periods, often between 2 and 3 years before they're fully ready to hit the streets.
2 to 3 years or longer. It's even 4 to 6 years, depending on which country. Over here in the Netherlands, and starting at the right age, if you want to be a policeman and you start at middle school, then you start at the age of 16. If you're fit enough and you have the right mental attitude, then you go from 16 plus 3 to your 19 is 3 years, and then you go to the police academy for another 2 years or 3 years. So in total 6 years.
For example, in Germany, police recruits undergo approximately 3 years of rigorous training, which includes everything from law to psychology and conflict de-escalation techniques. Similarly, in the UK, police officers typically complete a 2-year probationary period, which includes comprehensive classroom instruction, on-the-job training, and ongoing assessments. This longer, more intensive training in Europe ensures that officers are better equipped to handle the complex nature of law enforcement, especially when it comes to understanding legal frameworks, dealing with mental health issues, and managing high-stress situations without the immediate use of force.
This is the British police, yeah.
Police accountability, transparency, and oversight.
Oh, different topic. Okay.
Police accountability is a hot topic in both the US and Europe, but the systems for ensuring it are quite different. In the US, there are often calls for police reform and greater oversight, especially following controversial incidents of police misconduct. While there are mechanisms for accountability, such as body cameras, civilian oversight boards, and internal investigations, the process is often seen as opaque and lacking in consistent results. In Europe, however, many countries have more robust oversight systems in place, particularly when it comes to police conduct. For example, in the UK, the Independent Office for Police Conduct, IOPC, is an independent body that investigates complaints against the police and ensures transparency in the system. In Norway, public trust in law enforcement is bolstered by independent review processes that allow citizens to file complaints and hold officers accountable for misconduct.
Yeah, but that's something that's in America. Yeah, in America it's called "I'm gonna sue you." Yeah, that's something that not happen over here. You cannot sue the police. You can complain, but you cannot sue.
Moreover, in countries like Sweden and the Netherlands, police misconduct is treated with the utmost seriousness, and officers found guilty of abuse or corruption are often swiftly held accountable through internal or external investigations, ensuring greater public trust in the police force. The role of technology, surveillance versus privacy. In recent years, both US and European police forces have begun utilizing advanced technology
He's covering his body cam.
to aid in law enforcement. However, there's a stark difference in how technology is used and regulated. In the US, surveillance tools such as facial recognition technology, drones, and predictive policing algorithms are being employed by law enforcement agencies, sometimes with little regulation or oversight.
That's not allowed over here.
This has raised concerns about privacy rights, particularly in light of incidents where these technologies have been used disproportionately against minority communities. On the other hand, in Europe, the use of surveillance technology is subject to strict data protection laws, such as the General Data Protection
I just want to mention it, yeah, the GDPR. Yeah.
Regulation, GDPR. European countries are much more cautious about the collection and use of personal data, and any surveillance activities are heavily scrutinized for their legality and necessity. The European Union has set high standards for police use of technology, often prioritizing individual privacy and freedoms over the unchecked expansion.
Yeah, starting a wiretap? That's not so easy over here. In America, you need the judge to sign off. Over here, we need much more.
Of surveillance tools. Policing and mental health. A major difference in approach. Policing in the US often places a heavy burden on officers to handle a wide range of situations, including mental health crises. Unfortunately, the lack of proper training or resources can result in tragic outcomes, with police responding to mental health-related incidents with force instead of care. In the US, over 1 in 5 fatal police shootings involve individuals with mental health issues. In Europe, however, mental health training is often integrated into police education from the outset. Countries like Finland and the Netherlands have implemented specialized training and units to deal with mental health emergencies in a way that emphasizes care and understanding rather than punitive measures. In Finland, for example, officers are trained to recognize signs of mental distress and are equipped to handle situations calmly and effectively, often working in tandem with healthcare professionals to avoid violent escalation. Moreover, several European countries have separate mental health response teams that operate alongside the police.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Ensuring that
this is such a different. Oh, this is a nice one. Okay. Video. I like the 3D set, but this is also good.
Individuals experiencing a crisis receive the appropriate care rather than being incarcerated or subjected to force. Civilian oversight, a patchwork system in the US. Civilian oversight of police is a crucial check on power, but its implementation varies widely across the US. Some states have robust civilian review boards with investigative and disciplinary authority, while others rely on internal affairs units within police departments. This patchwork system can lead to inconsistencies in accountability. In Europe, civilian oversight is often more centralized and standardized. Independent police complaints commissions or inspectorates have the power to investigate misconduct, recommend disciplinary action, and even refer cases to prosecutors. Policing culture, community versus authority. Another
Big difference between those two. Yeah.
key difference between U.S. and European police forces is their overall relationship with the public.
Nobody trusts the police nowadays in the United States, especially with all those ICE raids.
In the U.S., policing often has an authoritarian undertone. The term us versus them is a common sentiment, where officers view themselves as protectors of the public, often positioning themselves above the citizens they serve. This mentality can sometimes lead to a more confrontational approach in interactions with the public.
By default, somebody goes into defensive mode when he or she sees a policeman or woman.
Public. In contrast, European policing tends to have a more community-oriented approach. The philosophy of policing by consent is central to many European nations, particularly in the UK. British police, for example, pride themselves on not carrying firearms and often emphasize their role as part of the community, not separate from it. The idea is to build trust with citizens through transparency, respect, and communication. This approach fosters a sense of collaboration.
Yeah, one big difference. Not carrying firearms in Britain or in comparison with America is that there is in America amendment, the Second Amendment, that everybody has the right to bear arms. So I understand that part, that if you have to consider that whoever you approach as an American policeman, he or she could have a firearm on him. So it's a different approach than in Europe. Nobody in Europe has the right to bear arms without heavy regulation. We can carry a firearm if we absolutely need to, but not everybody carries a firearm. So that's a totally different approach when you, so I understand that even if the Britons are proud on this, it's a totally different situation in the United States where everybody can carry a firearm from granny to a young kid.
Where police officers are seen as problem solvers rather than enforcers of law and order. The difference in police culture often extends to how police officers engage with protests, public gatherings, and civil disobedience. In the U.S., large-scale protests have sometimes led to violent clashes with law enforcement, with police using riot gear, tear gas, and rubber bullets to disperse crowds. On the other hand, European police forces are more likely to use dialogue, negotiation, and a gradual response to maintain order in similar situations.
Sometimes they also use smoke bombs, or tear bombs, and force. Sometimes they have to.
In countries like the Netherlands and Spain, for example, public protests are often managed by officers who engage in conversation with protest leaders to prevent violence before it escalates. Public perception and trust. Finally, the public perception of the police is shaped by the differences in their training, tactics, and oversight. In the U.S., trust in police is a complex and often contentious issue. Incidents of police violence, particularly against Black Americans, have eroded public confidence in law enforcement, especially in communities of color.
Yeah, I've seen several videos of a judge who's got people in front of them and they are accused of something, and he says always, be aware, some policemen arrest you for being black. Walking around and being black is enough to get arrested. So,
Movements like Black Lives Matter have highlighted the need for police reform, including changes to how officers are trained, how they interact with the public, and how accountability is handled. However, some communities in the U.S. still have a high level of trust in their local police, and efforts to improve police-community relations continue across the country. In Europe, public trust in police tends to be higher on average. While there are certainly instances of unrest or dissatisfaction with law enforcement, particularly in countries like France and Spain, where protests against police violence have occurred, the overall perception of police is generally more positive. This is largely due to the emphasis on community engagement, lower levels of militarization, and more robust accountability mechanisms.
A better knowledge of the law. That's usually that I saw missing in American about First Amendment rights, etc. That a lot of policemen don't know the First Amendment rights at all.
However, European police are not without their own challenges, particularly when it comes to issues like immigration, police brutality, and protests. While both American and European police forces aim to maintain public safety, their approaches to policing, use of force, community engagement, and accountability differ significantly. American police forces tend to be more heavily armed, more focused on immediate law enforcement, and face greater challenges related to accountability. European police forces, on the other hand, often have longer training periods, emphasize community engagement and de-escalation, and generally have stronger oversight mechanisms. Understanding these differences is crucial not only for comparing policing strategies, but also for ongoing discussions about the future of law enforcement in both regions. Enjoyed the video? Give it a...
Yeah. It's a lot of... It's a big difference between the two of them. And on one hand, I understand how it is in the United States because of everybody is carrying guns, so you need to be more careful. But on the other hand, in the United States, the training is not good enough. It's too short. You need, especially when you're interacting with a lot of different people. Everyone is different, and different cultures and different backgrounds and different societies. You need to anticipate, and that's what something is really missing in the American police education. And over here in the Netherlands and in Europe, sometimes I think a bit tougher would be good, but I'm not complaining. We are having a very good and very solid police corps over here. And that's something that's different too over here in the Netherlands. I'm not sure about other countries, but over here in the Netherlands, we don't have so many counties. It's this local police and state police, and that's it. And state police, we call them KLPD, they are doing the highways, like California Highway Patrol. They do the highways and special companies, special companies of, for example, the Queen or the King in this case. And everything else is handled by the local police. So that's also a difference. So corruption, etc. You're not getting voted, like in America, to be a police chief. You cannot be voted into the job as you've been selected after an intensive selection procedure, etc. You cannot be voted into the role of police chief. So now, a lot of differences that he didn't touch on that are, very, very much a difference between the United States and Europe and the Netherlands. I hope you liked the video. If you did, then press like. And if you want to see more of my videos, then this is a good point to start with. And otherwise, it would mean the world to me if you actually hit the subscribe button so we can make the algorithm understand how it works. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.